My name is Andrew Watson. I'm the Chief of Party of USAID's Morocco Economic Competitiveness Program, a project that has been working here in Morocco since 2010 with offices in Rabat and in Oujda and in El Jadida. Environmental sustainability is one of the key aspects of sustainable productivity when it comes to particularly the agricultural sector. Our definition of competitiveness is not only improved production, economically efficient production, but also social responsibility and environmental sustainability. These three things are important not only for sustainability, but also they are increasingly important for ensuring and improving access to foreign markets. Let me give you a couple examples. Up until recent years, the export of herbs from Morocco to Europe was extremely lucrative. It was a big business. But in the last 3 or 4 years, the whole industry has collapsed. And the reason was that the European importers, the European Union, and various countries would no longer accept herbs, such as mint, for example, that have excessive amounts of pesticides on them. And that is the case in Morocco, too much pesticide use. The problem is not only the access to markets, there are also health problems for the people that are applying the pesticides in the fields of Morocco, and also the Moroccans that are using these same herbs in buying them in local markets and using them. Another example would be child labor. Increasingly, overseas markets, whether it be Europe or North America, absolutely refuse to accept any products, whether they be agricultural products or processed foods, for example, that have involved the use of child labor anywhere along the way. In other words, not only does child labor on farm or in agro-processing plants have a negative impact on those children because they're not going to school, but the markets will not accept the products that are being produced. The MEC program, as with all USAID-funded projects, has a very rigorous procedure for ensuring compliance with environmental regulations, whether they be US regulations or Moroccan law. We have a series of procedures that require that we undertake a detailed environmental assessment, a screening process, before we fund any activities, whether they be grant funded or other types of activities that involve technical assistance. To give you an example, we have a pesticide use manual that deals with every single pesticide that is available in Morocco and specifies whether they should be used, cannot be used, if they are usable, what procedures need to be adopted in order to ensure that they're used safely and appropriately. One very good example of how the MEC program is linking improved economic competitiveness to environmental sustainability is the work that we're doing with several cooperatives in the Oriental region, particularly around Gerada and Talsint. The cooperatives there are harvesting aromatic and medicinal plants under an agreement with the Eaux et Forêts, the Water and Forests Department. They have these agreements in order to conserve the natural habitats where they're working, where they're harvesting the plants. But at the same time, they have the authority to commercialize what they're harvesting. And the crop that is of most interest to MEC has been rosemary, because we identified early on that there are some very lucrative overseas markets for simple rosemary products, dried leaves and so on. What MEC has done to improve the competitiveness of these groups is give them grants that enable them to buy fairly sophisticated equipment for cleaning and processing the rosemary and then for packaging it. The cooperatives can then sell this value-added product to buyers in Morocco who then export the product over to countries overseas, particularly to Europe and to North America. With one single activity, we are conserving the environment, some very, very fragile and important habitat, and improving the lives of cooperative members and the people, often nomads, that are working for the cooperatives for day wages. My name is Andrew Watson. I'm the Chief of Party of USAID's Morocco Economic Competitiveness Program, a project that has been working here in Morocco since 2010 with offices in Rabat and in Oujda and in El Jadida. When it comes to linking Moroccan farmers to markets, there are really two principal challenges. One is the fact that MEC is dealing principally with smallholder farmers and some medium-scale farmers, but not the big guys. So these farmers have immediate problems to do with immediate challenges related to their technical knowledge and also their financial capability to link to markets. The second challenge is not so much related to linking farmers to markets, but linking what the farmers are growing to the markets. The smallholders in Morocco do not have the technology nor the financial wherewithal to introduce crops that are actually attractive to markets, whether those markets are in Morocco or internationally. MEC has three overarching objectives. One is to help Moroccan farmers reduce the amount of water that they are using to grow their crops. The second objective is to help them gain more revenues through better access to markets. And the third objective is to actually create jobs or to help people obtain better jobs. In order to meet these objectives, at the very outset of the program, back in 2010, we undertook a detailed value chain assessment of the different Moroccan agricultural products and what their suitability was for markets, national markets and international markets. Some of the criteria we used in that analysis were the water savings that can be attained by different crops, by growing different crops, the attractiveness of the crops in international markets, and also the opportunities for creating better employment. These analyses helped us focus on less than a handful of crops or agricultural sectors which have, in our opinion, considerable scope for growth based on their competitiveness. Two of the main sectors are vegetable production and dairy production. All of MEC's work in the agricultural sector links to Morocco's agricultural development plan, the Plan Maroc Vert, which was launched in 2008 and will continue to about 2020. The Plan Maroc Vert has two main themes. Pilier 1, Pillar 1, focuses on providing support to large-scale commercial farmers that are generating economic growth for the country. The second pillar, Pilier 2, focuses on agriculture solidaire. That is basically activities that alleviate poverty for smallholder farmers. This is MEC's main emphasis. We are helping smallholder farmers access the many types of subsidies that the government of Morocco provides under the Plan Maroc Vert, and these include subsidies for conversion to higher technology irrigation, that's drip irrigation, and also provides incentives to aggregateurs. These are middlemen that work with farmers to provide them with inputs and also, at the end of the agricultural season, purchase the produce from the farmers in order to get them to market. One very good example of how MEC has been helping link smallholder farmers in Morocco to lucrative markets is the case of the vegetable sector, which I described earlier. By helping farmers convert to higher technology irrigation, in Morocco that's principally drip irrigation, we are enabling farmers to move out of growing low-value crops such as cereals, particularly wheat and barley, into growing lucrative crops such as vegetables, whether they be tomatoes, onions, green beans, and so on. By growing these crops, the farmers can expand their market base. There are markets beyond the local souk, 5 kilometers down the road, where they traditionally sell their agricultural produce, to bigger buyers in bigger markets, whether they be in Morocco or beyond the borders of Morocco. What we have been able to do is forge linkages between Moroccan smallholder farmers and agro-processing companies in the larger cities of Morocco. This enables the farmers to sell their product to these companies, who are then processing the products, the vegetables, in order to make sauces and other products that are then sold within Morocco and also in Europe, North America and the Gulf. The basic arrangement is that we have linked the agro-processors to the suppliers, whether they be smallholder farmers or farmers associations, with supply contracts. The farmers grow the crops in a environmentally sound manner, minimizing the use of pesticides and so on. And the buyers, the agro-processors, have a guaranteed supply of high-quality product that they can use to make their own products. The final piece of the puzzle is linking the Moroccan agro-processors, who are buying their produce from smallholders around the country, linking those agro-processors and their products to overseas market, particularly overseas market, whether they be in the United States or in Europe or in the Gulf region. The challenge that MEC has been able to address is helping these agro-processors understand the importance of having a product, developing a product that is of interest in the market, of interest to buyers in these different countries, and that meets all the requirements that are needed by the agencies in the importing countries. We've been able to develop new products, vegetable sauces, for example, stuffed peppers is another example, that we've demonstrated are of great interest to consumers in the United States and in France and in Belgium, for example. The second step, having developed that product, is to produce it in a way that meets all the requirements of the importing country. Some of these requirements are pretty straightforward to fulfill, the ISO certification, for example. Others are a lot more complicated because the Moroccan agro-processors need to demonstrate that at every step along the way, they are meeting the appropriate requirements to make that product acceptable in the United States or in France or wherever it may be.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Jean-Michel Masse, je suis le coordinateur de la composante climat des affaires au sein du programme compétitivité économique du Maroc, de l'USAID, et je travaille sur le thème du climat des affaires depuis une dizaine d'années maintenant. Alors le climat des affaires, qu'on appelle aussi l'environnement des affaires, en fait c'est tout l'environnement légal et réglementaire dans lequel évolue une entreprise, depuis sa création jusqu'à sa radiation ou sa transmission. Une entreprise, dès sa création, elle a affaire à l'administration, elle aura à avoir à manipuler des procédures administratives, et ça c'est vrai tout au long de sa vie. C'est ça le climat des affaires. Pourquoi il est pertinent de parler de climat régional des affaires? Vous avez raison, la loi est la même pour tous au Maroc. Pourtant, les pratiques régionales varient d'une région à l'autre et plusieurs études depuis plusieurs années l'ont montré. Pour une même procédure, les délais de réalisation de cette procédure, par exemple, peuvent varier d'une simple au double d'une région à l'autre parce que les pratiques administratives sont différentes d'une région à l'autre. Bien sûr qu'on peut améliorer le climat des affaires, sinon on ne serait pas là. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? Comment est-ce qu'on peut l'améliorer? C'est tout l'objet de notre travail au sein de ce programme. En fait, travailler sur l'amélioration du climat des affaires, la plupart du temps, c'est travailler à l'harmonisation, à la simplification des procédures administratives. Et pour une bonne raison, pour rendre la vie plus facile à l'usager, qu'il soit un simple citoyen ou une entreprise. Concrètement, dans notre programme, et à titre d'exemple, on a travaillé sur la procédure création d'entreprise, dans la perspective de réduire les délais de création d'entreprise. On a travaillé sur l'autorisation de construire pour faciliter la vie des architectes et des promoteurs immobiliers. Et je pourrais vous citer comme ça de nombreux exemples. Qui peut améliorer le climat des affaires? Tous ceux qui, de près ou de loin, manipulent les procédures administratives, à commencer par les agents de l'administration. Mais la vraie question, ce n'est pas tellement qui peut améliorer le climat des affaires, c'est qui peut choisir d'améliorer le climat des affaires, ce qui pose le problème de la gouvernance. Qui est légitime pour dire que dans ma région, c'est cette procédure en particulier qui devrait être améliorée plutôt que telle autre. Au niveau national, il existe un comité, le Comité national de l'environnement des affaires, qui s'occupe de ces questions pour tout ce qui touche à la réglementation ou la loi, ce qui touche tout le territoire. Par contre, à l'échelle locale, où, on l'a dit tout à l'heure, il s'agit davantage de travailler sur les pratiques administratives, eh bien, de mon point de vue, qui peut l'améliorer, qui peut choisir d'améliorer, il faut inventer une espèce de structure de gouvernance à l'échelle régionale, qui soit un petit peu le pendant du comité national comme il existe à Rabat, mais au niveau de chacune des régions. C'est une initiative que l'on essaye d'introduire au Maroc à travers la création des comités régionaux de l'environnement des affaires, dont la vocation première sera bien d'essayer de prioriser les actions en vue de l'amélioration du climat régional des affaires et de superviser le suivi de leur bonne réalisation. Comment peut-on parler d'amélioration si par ailleurs on n'a pas un outil qui permette de mesurer les progrès accomplis? Alors au niveau national, il existe un classement international qui s'appelle le Doing Business et qui permet de mesurer la place du Maroc, mais en fait c'est la place de Casablanca parce que c'est bien les données de Casablanca qui sont recueillies, donc qui permettent de mesurer les progrès accomplis à l'échelle nationale. À l'échelle régionale, il n'existe aucun outil à ce jour. Dans le cadre de ce programme, on a essayé de fabriquer un outil qu'on a appelé les enquêtes régionales sur le climat des affaires, bâti sur la base des indicateurs à la fois du Doing Business et de l'enquête qui est réalisée chaque année par le World Economic Forum. On l'a réalisé en 2010, on l'a réalisé en 2012. On espère que cet outil perdurera au-delà de la vie du programme, même si, et je pense que c'est nécessaire, dans la concertation avec nos partenaires, nous allons essayer d'élaborer des indicateurs sur lesquels il y a un consensus.